Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to go ahead and finish off this expression sheet. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, this is another long video, about 43 minutes long, which means I'm going to be rambling. Yay! So exciting. If you like to hear somebody not know what they're going to talk about, look forward to that. Yeah. Um, Honestly, it's getting a little bit easier to talk. I feel like I'm not like super whispering anymore, but maybe you like the super whispering type thing. I don't know. You can let me know. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be another long video. And I don't even have like the art supplies to talk about because I talked about them on Tuesday's video. So if you wanna um go ahead and know what art supplies I'm using to draw these little expressions and what expression sheet I'm using, you can go ahead and pop back over to Tuesday's video. Yeah, you can go ahead and pop back over to Tuesday's video and see what that's all about. And that's what we call cross promo, kids. Yeah. So it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to talk about today. Because like I said, I don't have the art supplies to talk about, and I really didn't have any ideas what I wanted to talk about because this is just we're just doing an expression sheet, and I don't really want to talk about the expressions because I was just looking at them from the expression sheet. So what I settled on to talk about was I guess more of my art journey. You'll find out more about that when we go through my sketchbooks, but um yeah, I just figured I'd talk about that right now. Um, like everybody, I think I like to draw when I was like a little kid. But when I was in about the eighth or ninth grade, I decided that I was gonna try to draw more seriously, more with purpose. So like most of the kids growing up in the early 2000s, um, a lot of my art at the beginning was influenced by anime. This is probably very similar to other artists that you've heard talk about, where they talked about how anime was really influential in your style. But you gotta understand that back in like, oh, when did Naruto premiere? Because I think Naruto was a lot of kids' art awakening. If you're like the same age that I am. Yeah. So I think Naruto was like 2007 or something. Um, but yeah, that's what kind of birthed my like what's it called? My interest in art. And I think that's pretty obvious from my art style. Like, um it's very anime inspired, and when people see it, they're like, "Oh, so you like to draw anime?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." Because it used to bother me a bit, and kind of like when people would say, "Oh, you like to draw anime?" And as a kid, I was always like, "It's not anime. I'm not drawing anime." But like back then, it definitely was anime that I was drawing. And also, even now, my art does have a lot of similarities to anime art. And I think the reason why I didn't want people to be calling my art anime art was because I internalized a lot of negative things that people would be saying about anime and about having an anime art style, like how anime art wasn't real art and you should not be drawing an anime art. Um, I know it's kind of cliche to hear this. Everybody's like, "Oh, I had a mean art teacher and they told me to stop drawing anime art." I didn't really have an art teacher that hated anime art. Um, she was pretty nice. She was a chill lady. She let you draw whatever as long as you were like trying to do different things, like trying to like differentiate poses and stuff. I did not differentiate poses, and so one time I got like a C, and I was like so mad. But she was right. I wasn't differentiating poses. Yeah, I still have a lot of that art. I just like to keep pretty much all my art. I know a lot of people like to throw out their stuff, and I have thrown out a lot of stuff, but I also still have a lot of stuff from all the way back then. So I don't know if I'll do dedicated sketchbook tours to that, but maybe when I go through all my sketchbooks, I'll go ahead and go back to that stuff because I don't have very much of it. And then like my finished artwork binder that I also have, that's like a bunch of separate things that weren't in sketchbooks. I'll go through both of those at the same time, I think. But that won't be for a long time. So yeah, if you want to see that, just let me know. But yeah, so yeah, I was internalizing a lot of negative things about anime art, so I didn't want I guess to be associated with that, which is kind of lame now. I realize that now. I really don't care if people call my art anime art anymore. Um And also, I don't even know if that's like a relevant thing that people say anymore. Let me know. I haven't been in school for a long time, so I don't know if art teachers still say that like anime art is not real art. You guys can let me know, but I really don't care anymore if people call my art anime art. They're like, "Oh, you draw anime?" For lots of reasons. Mostly because my art is like super similar to anime. Like it's never gonna be technically anime or manga because I'm not from Japan. Um, and I'm not a Japanese artist, so it's not gonna be anime or manga. And you can get into a lot of like, well, anime doesn't necessarily mean it's from Japan or whatever. And like even if something is produced in Japan, that doesn't mean that it is anime if the style is different, yada yada yada. I'm not here to get into like the nitpicky parts of what is or isn't anime. Just for right now, I'm gonna say my art is not technically anime because it's not Japanese, okay? And we'll just settle it on that. But it does have a lot of similarities. Like I like to draw really big eyes. There's a lot of emphasis on the eyes in anime. Um, and minimal to no nose. When I first started, I really didn't really draw noses at all. I just do the little dot, and as I started to progress a little bit more, I moved on from a dot to a little like triangle type thing, kind of like the Soul Eater art style, and then I moved on to that to the two little dots, and then coloring it in, and then moving on from that, I kind of just draw a triangle now. Because I don't know, I'm lazy, I guess. I could learn how to draw noses. I probably should learn how to draw noses just for like the sake of having like differentiating, like having same face syndrome. Like I said before, there's nothing wrong with having same face syndrome. It's just not what I'm going for. But for right now, the noses are just triangles. Um, and then more realistic body proportions is also a feature, and I try to do that. Except for the eyes and stuff. And even sometimes I still do a spiky anime boy hairstyle, um classic, but not as much as I used to. And like I said, I realized that being compared to anime is not really bad at all. It's supposed to be cute and appealing, and so when people who don't know anything about art tell me my art looks like anime, they're pretty much just trying to tell you that your art is cute and appealing. So you should just take the compliment. And they're trying also to show you that they know stuff about art, like they're trying to relate to you. So if your aunt or your uncle is like, "Oh wow, I know how much you like to draw that anime art," you just gotta be like, "They're trying to relate to me. I love you, aunt and or uncle." Yeah. So it's easier to just agree and smile than to explain the differences. And like we've talked about before, I'm lazy, so I'm not really interested in getting into all of that. So just smile and accept the compliment. Going back to the eyes for a second, as we're gonna go through my old sketchbooks, you'll really see that I was super emphasizing the eyes even more than I do now. But it was like super, super intense back then. The eyes were pretty much like half the face. Um, Over the years, the size of the eyes has gotten smaller in my art, but I think I'm going through a phase where they're starting to get bigger again. So I'm trying to consciously curb myself from doing that. There's nothing wrong with drawing really big eyes. Like I said, I did it in the past and I like the way it looks and I still like the way it looks. But I'm not really trying to do that with my style anymore. So I'm just trying to just like subtly shrink them, not so big. I do have one character who I'll talk about a little bit later. Who has really big eyes, but that's like part of her character. She's got like this wide-eyed, like kind of strange look on her face. So her eyes are really big. But other than that, I'm trying to make them smaller. So in that way, when you see her against other characters, you're like, wow, she really looks weird. But that's because that's the point. She's supposed to kind of like really wide eyed and like a deer in the headlights type thing. So yeah, um, since I was in middle school when my art study really started to start with like more serious drawings and stuff. Sorry, that's like all over the place. But yeah, since I was in middle school, a lot of my art journey was influenced by like characters and stuff me and my friends would make together, or like comics I was trying to like make them laugh, like those mini monsters characters from my very first sketchbook tour. I created those guys. I believe with my friends, so I'm not really sure the legality of how much I own them. And some of the other characters that I made with my friends, I revamped those guys a lot. So they're not really the same as the characters I created with my friends. So I think that means I own them, but I might owe somebody some royalty somewhere. Just if I do anything with them, commercially, I guess. But I don't know. Um, yeah, but they're different. They're a lot different now. They have like different names and stuff, and they don't even look the same. So probably not. But I don't know. You'll see those characters in later sketchbooks since most of the drawings that I tend to do is original stuff, which is probably a good time to mention that there probably will not be a super ton of fan art on this channel. And by that, I mean like it'll be like 99.9% original stuff with maybe some fan art sprinkled in sometimes. But I wouldn't hold your breath too much on that one. I don't have anything against fan art, and it's not like I don't like fan art. I actually like fan art a lot, and a lot of the artists that I follow currently, I started following them just because I like their fan art so much. Um, but personally, I like to see more of people's original characters, and I like to draw more of my own original characters. Um, so that's mostly what you're gonna see here. Plus I don't really have the motivation to draw fan art. Sometimes when I really get into something for the first time, I'll be like, wow, I really have to draw that guy or that lady. I just love them so much. Um, and so I'll do like a couple of little doodles with them. I do have some illustrations of some fan arts that I did, which you'll see like way, way, way later down the line. For my sketchbook tours. But usually, yeah, I can bust out like one or two illustrations or a couple of doodles. But other than that, I don't really have the motivation to draw too much fan art. Maybe I'll do a video where I just talk about some of my favorite pieces of media, some of my favorite anime. Like I said, I do like anime, and I still like to watch anime sometimes. Um, Currently, like everybody else in the world, I'm not really watching One Piece, but I do like to listen to recaps and watch recaps on YouTube. Um so I'm caught up with One Piece. And if you guys don't read One Piece, not to sound like somebody who likes One Piece, but you should get into One Piece. I think now is really the best time to get into it because it's getting into the final arc now, and they're about to, I don't know how close they are to finding the One Piece, but they're gonna get there soon. And so I think I would want to catch up on One Piece before they figure out what the One Piece is. So that way when everybody's freaking out about it on the internet, you know, get like spoilers and you're like, well, I don't care about One Piece. I'm never gonna watch One Piece. And then eventually you'll get into One Piece and you'll be like, damn, I really wish I had watched One Piece back in the past and I didn't get spoiled for what the One Piece was. Um, yeah. So as you can see, I am a fan of things, and I do have characters that I'm into. If you're wondering, about One Piece, my favorite characters are Zoro and Usopp. But yeah, so maybe I will do some fan art for that. But I don't know. Um, if you guys want to see fan art, I'll be willing to draw it, but not all the time, just sometimes. Yeah, not to go off on a tangent, my bad. I know we were talking about my art journey and we ended up talking about One Piece. But as I'm talking about things, I wrote down a script, but I'm not really following the script too much. I like go in and out of the script. Like I will fall deeper into a rabbit hole of some tangent I'm on, and then I'm like, oh, I should probably look back at the script. And then I find things that I want to say and I don't want to forget them, so I just say them right away. And then I get up further and further from the topic. And I just follow that trail down until we're talking about something completely different. So let's go ahead and get back to what we were talking about, which was my art journey, which we were focusing on the characters I made with my friends. So like I was saying, you're gonna see those guys later, in later sketchbooks, and also even in my current sketchbooks. They've changed a lot, like I said. They were created more than 10 years ago at this point. I think I was in middle school 14 years ago, which makes me, I don't want to say that I'm old because that's offensive to people who are actually old. Um, but according to the children that I work with, I am an old person. And every time I talk about when I was a kid, they're like, oh, back in your day, miss. And I don't know, something about hearing back in your day, and not even back in your day, they say back in the day. I'm like, don't tell me I was back in the day, bro. Like, I was not back in the day. I'm in the current day. Don't talk to me like that. But yeah, so about 14 years ago, um, back when I was in middle school. Those characters have changed a lot. But when we're talking about my art journey, unfortunately, we have to talk about the many breaks that I would take. Um, so despite drawing for about 14 years, it was not consistent. It was on and off. Like I would go months and sometimes even like a year or years where I would not draw. I was super inconsistent. I have this problem specifically with hobbies that I like to do where I like to pick up and put them down just whenever. And when I say pick up and put them down, I don't mean I start one new thing and then I stop that thing completely. Like I'll never go back to it. Except for soccer. I started soccer and I didn't like soccer. And I guess also the guitar. I started the guitar and I never went back to the guitar. Um, but I do plan on learning how to play the bass this year. That's also one of my New Year's resolutions. I did not talk about that, but um, I'm a grown up now. Okay, if I want to learn how to play the bass, I can learn how to play the bass. I can put my focus into it. Maybe I haven't looked at the website since the year began, but that's neither here nor there. But like I was saying, I like to pick up hobbies and then I drop them. In that I will hyperfixate on something for like a couple of months, like really get into it, do it a lot, do it like every day consistently, and then I'll be like, okay, I don't really feel like doing that anymore. And then slowly, I stop doing it and I will stop doing that thing for months until I'm like, oh, look, it's something that reminds me of my hobby. I should get back into my hobby again. And then I do it again for a couple of months. And then it's just like a cycle. Um, I'm happy for this cycle a little bit when it comes to hobbies. When it comes to hobbies that cost me a lot of money, like, I can't waste money every week on buying slime. And mechanical keyboards, I especially cannot waste money every month buying mechanical keyboards. If you guys are into building mechanical keyboards, you will know how expensive it is just to buy like switches and keycaps. Oh my gosh, just to buy keycaps. And some of the keycaps are so nice. They're like so pretty and you're like, oh, that color is like so lovely. And then they tell you that it's $145 and you're like, I can't spend $145 on keycaps, but I'm super tempted. So you just got to get rid of everything that reminds you of mechanical keyboards for a while because you cannot spend $145 every week. You see a new keycap set. Sorry, that was another tangent. So just to cut that off real quick, if you're gonna get into mechanical keyboards, I wouldn't do it unless you had a lot of disposable income. And anybody who builds mechanical keyboards would tell you the same thing. If anything, they would tell you just don't get into mechanical keyboards at all. Anyway, yeah. So when it comes to things that are expensive, I don't mind the ebb and flow of starting things and then stopping them. Because like I said, I should not really be wasting money on things every week. But with free hobbies like reading or writing or drawing, I'm trying to focus on doing those more consistently. So you may be thinking, none of those things are free. That is true. You would have to buy paper and you have to buy art supplies, but I already sunk the costs in for paper and art supplies, so I don't need to buy anything new for those hobbies. I'm tempted all the time to buy something new. Like this artist I saw was drawing with this really cool fountain pen, and even though I know I don't like fountain pens, I'm like, that is so cool. If I got that fountain pen, I'd be able to draw like them, which is not true. Did you guys have that thought when you were kids? Like, if I had whatever that pen they're using, my handwriting would look like theirs or my art would look like theirs. And it never does. So don't fall into that trap. I promise you, you really don't need another pen, especially if you have so many pens that you donated some and you still have a lot more. Oops, sorry, that was my dog. He's chill now. Anyway, um, yeah, so I have all of the supplies I need for writing and for drawing, and so I don't really need to buy anything to do those, so it should be easy to do those more consistently, without wasting a bunch of money. And you're also probably thinking, reading is not free. You need to go and buy books. But reading is free if you have a library card. This is gonna be another tangent. I already know it, but I have to talk about the greatness that is the public library. I'm a very big proponent of everybody having a library card. And if you don't have a library card for your public library, you should get one and you should start reading. If you don't like reading, that's chill. Not lots of people like reading. Um, but if you're willing to try new things, you might find out that it's not that you don't like reading, is that you don't like that people force you to read, especially in schools. they force people to read, and they don't let them read things that they like, and so it kind of kills their love for reading. And if you find topics that you like to read about, you can find that you actually really do enjoy reading. It's just that other people were poisoning your enjoyment through the public school system. And don't get me started on the public school system because then we would be here for like 2 hours. Um, but yeah, if you don't like a book that you're reading, you could just dump it. I do that all the time. Sometimes I'm like, this is not the vibe that I thought it was going for. Um, so yeah, you just stop reading it. It's really that easy. And you can pick up something that you do like. If you really need to know the ending, which I do for a lot of the books that I stop reading for whatever reason, I just Google it and look for spoiler reviews. Because lots of other people probably were like, oh, I didn't like this book either. And if someone is upset, they usually like to rant about it a little bit. And I like to read those reviews. Yeah, because I'm like, yes, I felt the same way. So yeah, maybe you're like, I don't want to drive to the library every week to pick up a physical book. I don't have the gas money. Um, but you don't have to because I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure if all public libraries in North America or in the US or whatever is on the Libby app, but I think that most of them are. And I know this sounds like either an ad for this app or an ad for reading. But I promise nobody is paying me for this. And also, why would they? I have like 15 subscribers. Not that you guys aren't cool. Um, but hi, by the way. You can register with your as soon as you get a library card, you can pretty much just download the Libby app and you just plug your library card in there, and then you get the entire digital catalog of that library. And if you have friends or family members in different states, you can plug in their library card and then you get their entire digital catalog because not every library has the same books. And you can put that on your phone or your tablet or whatever, and you can read whatever you want, whenever you want. I mean, as long as your library has the selection. Maybe you're like, I can't read on the screen for long periods of time. It hurts my eyes. They have audiobooks, you guys, so you can listen to a book, and audiobooks really help me. Because it's not that I can't read on my phone or whatever. It's just like sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to read with my eyes. And so I just listen to an audiobook while I'm doing other things, and it's so nice. And maybe you're like, audiobooks are not reading. I'm just gonna tell you that's super ableist, so maybe don't think that way. Um, yeah. So, yeah, something for every kind of reader. Um, Support your local libraries, kiddos. And I know some people are not able to get a library card, and that's a bummer. I'm so sorry about that. But if you are able to get a library card, I would just go ahead and get one. Because they're trying to find excuses to get rid of libraries, and we can't let them because they're super important cornerstones of the community. So I would just go ahead and start using your public library if you have the ability. Yeah, I know that was a tangent, but technically reading is pretty relevant to my art journey. Um, so when I was a kid, I really liked to read, as you can probably tell. And so since I like to read so much, I got interested in trying to tell my own stories. So I started to write. And like I said, my writing and my art are they go hand in hand pretty much. They're best friends, yay. And since they're best friends, when I was writing down their stories, I got curious about what they would look like. And so I would start to draw them. And that's how I got back into drawing after taking long breaks. Um, and I would go back to doing character designs. And none of my character designs are anything too complicated or special. Like, you won't find like lots of super details in my art. Even now, I like detailed art, but I have trouble what's it called, putting more detailed stuff into my art. It would really help with character stuff though, because it would make them look more like alive, because lots of people have details on there, and they have like jewelry that they like, they have like specific clothing brands and stuff that they like. So that would help. I'm trying to put more details in my art. But yeah, like I said, my character designs aren't anything too complicated, but I like to put a little bit of thought into the choices I make so that their appearances match their personality slash the role in the stories that I'm writing. Um, which is pretty much this is pretty much the reason that I only draw people slash characters. I know this is going to sound like an excuse, and I'm going to sound like a bunch of other artists. Um, when I say that. I try to draw backgrounds, but I think that they're super boring. I know this is groundbreaking stuff, and it's the first time you've heard this. Um, but yeah, I don't like to draw backgrounds. I think that they're boring. Hopefully this year I will be able to either one, find my love for backgrounds and maybe start designing them like characters and putting thought into them so that way I can force myself to love them. Or two, I force myself to suck it up and start drawing backgrounds because I'm not great at those and I can use these videos as an excuse to draw backgrounds because I'll be like, well, I'm not drawing them for just myself. I'm drawing them so other people can watch and maybe they can learn to like to draw backgrounds and maybe they can draw backgrounds with me because they're like, I don't want to draw backgrounds either. And we could do it as buddies because it's always more fun to do things when you do them together. And I know how cheesy that sounds, but it's actually pretty true. Um, so if you guys want to see me suffer and to draw backgrounds and you'd like to suffer with me, I will do that. Um, and maybe even if people don't have interest in drawing backgrounds, I'll do it anyway. I'll take the bullet. I'll bite the bullet for the team. Um, and I'll do that. Okay, so I reached the end of my script and we have 16 minutes left in the video, which means that I'm going to be doing my best um to figure out what to talk about. But yeah, moving on through my art journey. Thankfully with my characters I was pretty consistent with writing throughout high school because I was giving it to my friends to read and they it's nice to have friends, guys, because they were very supportive and they would want to read more stuff. And so, even if I was wanting to drop something, they would kind of be like, "Oh, where's the next chapter? I want to see how the story ends." So I would have to force myself into finishing things. Like this one time, I did write a full length. It was not a full length novel because it was only 90 pages, and this was handwritten pages. So really, it was like a short story. It was like maybe half that. So I wrote the whole thing, but I had given it to a girl so that she could read it, and then she ended up taking it home, and she said that her mom threw it away. I don't know how true that was. Um, I don't know if maybe she just wanted to keep it. I don't. It was not very good, so I don't think that she wanted to keep it. So I think maybe she was being honest. But either way, it was devastating. And the first story I ever finished, I could never get it back because it ended up in the trash, supposedly. Um, and so I would just say never let anybody take any of your stuff home for the weekend. Um, ever. Which sounds a little bit distrusting, but I think I earned that distrust. So if you have something that you really care about and you only have one copy of it, I would say don't hand it off to people um that you don't know are going to return it. So yeah. And I do still have some stuff about those characters. I just don't have the completely um full like finished novel type thing, like all the story beats. Um you'll probably see those characters. I think I drew them in some of my old sketchbooks. Um, so you'll probably see them. And I might talk a little bit about that story. I don't remember much of it. I just remember that they were elementals, like they can control elements, and that there was one scene when they went bowling, but the bowling stuff was like made out of ice because I think the main girl, um, controlled water, but I also think she was also kind of the avatar. I can't remember. Um, So yeah, a lot of the stuff at the beginning of when you start writing is pretty derivative, and also when you start drawing is pretty derivative. That's just how kids are because they just like things that they like, and so they want to write stuff like that. So yeah, so I continued to write and to draw all throughout high school, and then I think I stopped a little bit while I was in college, or I was drawing a lot in college. I think it was both. I think I stopped a little bit before college, and then when I got back into college, I was really bored during lectures, and I'm gonna tell you right now, this is really bad, and I would not follow this. This is not advice. Um, but I was drawing throughout my lectures, um, so I was not really paying attention. So I would not draw through my lectures in college. Because in college, some college professors they might like bother you and they'd be like, "Put that away! Don't draw in my lecture. Why are you here if you're not gonna pay attention?" Um, but what they teachers really don't tell you about college are like your college professors are gonna be strict. Um, in my experience, college professors, they're not really strict. They know that you're an adult. So if you're gonna be there and you're not gonna pay attention, you're gonna be there and you're not gonna pay attention, and you're just gonna fail the test. And they don't care if you fail the test because when they're tenured, a lot of them are tenured, and also, they get paid either way. Like if you fail, you fail. That's your business. You're wasting your own money. And I'll be honest, I did waste some money in college. So I would not draw through your lectures, but I was drawing through my lectures in college, and yeah. I mean, the college professor would get in trouble if like everybody failed their course or whatever. But like if it's just like one or two people because they weren't paying attention, I mean that's their business, you know. So I would not draw through your lectures. Um, yeah. So I forgot to talk about in this art journey, not just that I was drawing, but what supplies I was using to draw. So like everybody as a kid, I started drawing off with just a plain pencil. Um, and so most of my sketchbooks at the beginning are just graphite. Eventually I moved through graphite and I moved on to colored pencils. Um, just because I think that's one of the first art things that people give their kids after crayons. They move to color pencils because one, it's not really gonna make a mess. I mean, the pencil shavings could make a mess, but you just have to sweep those up right. And then it's not wet, so they don't get water everywhere and they don't get paint all over the floor. And you can just sweep up pencil shavings. So yeah, after moving on to graphite pencils, I moved on to color pencils and ink. So just like pen, I would just think it was like ballpoint pen or something, or gel pen. I've loved gel pen since I was a kid, so it was probably gel pen and colored pencils. And then after that, I got my very first coloring marker in high school, and it was like love at first sight. I was like, wow. And I think my very first coloring marker was sand, I believe. I don't remember what number that is right now, but it was like a brown tone, and I used it to color I think hair for one of my OCs. You'll probably see that in one of my later sketchbooks, but that was in high school, and I think late high school, like before like a little bit before I went to college, so it might take us a while to get there. But yeah, you'll see my very first Copic marker. Um, and I could not really afford Copic markers because I was in high school and they were expensive even back then. And they're still expensive now, but I just buy them one at a time and it's not that bad. But there are a lot more alternatives to Copic markers now that are as good as coping markers. I haven't tried Who's, but I have tried a bunch of other brands. I still mostly just use my Copics, but that's just because I have the most colors for them, and I have them set up to where they're like right in my face, so I could just grab them whenever I need them. And my other markers are like in a drawer somewhere, and so I just default to using my Copics most of the time. But yeah, after I got my very first Copic marker, my parents bought me some cheap alcohol markers, and I used those for a long time until they started to get old and dry and crusty. And then also as I started to build up my Copic collection, I didn't need them anymore, so I gave them to my coworker's daughter at the time. I mean, she's still her daughter, but she's not my coworker anymore. I have a different job. But yeah, I gave those away, and she liked those. And just so you know, I didn't give her like the old dry and crusty markers. It was gonna sound like I'm adding this. I'm adding this in because it sounded like I gave her old dry crusty markers. I did not do that, okay? I checked all of the ones, and the ones that were not dry, old, and crusty, those are the ones I donated. I just didn't want you guys to think like, oh, she just pawns off stuff that she doesn't want. She pawns off trash. I don't pawn off trash, I swear. I give stuff away that still works and is like usable and stuff. So yeah. So if I have a lot of art supplies, so I tend to just give them away because I can't use them all, and I would rather them go to somebody else who can use them than just take up dust in my room or whatever. So yeah, I started using alcohol markers. When I got into college, I decided I had a lot of watercolors. I think also I was in high school a little bit when I was trying to use watercolor, but I mostly remember using it in college when I was actually super trying to learn watercolor. Um, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna buckle down and I'm gonna learn how to use watercolor. And so when we get to some of my college sketchbooks, you'll see that some of my pieces are watercolor because even though I don't like watercolor now, I really tried to like watercolor. Like I really tried. I like bought watercolor sketchbooks and I was like, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna learn how to use watercolor. It's one of the most used, or I think it is like the most popular medium that people use to color with, just because it's all you need is the watercolor paints and water and you're good to go. But I don't know what it is. I just can't get it. I just can't get watercolor, and I've tried so hard, and I'm so sorry, watercolor, that I've let you down, but I couldn't do it. And so I just went back to my Copic markers. um just because in my opinion they're easier to use. Um they're it's just easier. You just lay on a flat color and then you blend it out with some other colors. And I know it's not really cost effective as just buying a watercolor set or using other paints where you just mix your colors. You have to like buy every individual color if you want to use alcohol markers. But in my opinion, I don't like mixing colors. I don't like mixing paint. Um, and it's just not my vibe. I don't want it to sound like the only reason I like to use markers is because I don't like paint. That's part of the reason, a pretty big part of the reason, but also, I like them because they're dry, and I also like the way that they look. I like the way that they blend. I just think they're really pretty. So I actually do love my Copic markers, and I do like all of the markers that I have. I just stopped using them um as often because I just couldn't bring myself to do more finished stuff. I didn't really have the motivation to finish a whole drawing because I was trying to do a drawing like a full illustration every week for a long time. But I got really bad burnout. So I just couldn't make myself do it anymore. But I still wanted to draw. I didn't want to give up on drawing because I like drawing and I didn't want to lose the progress that I had. I had been taking a breaks for like months at a time, and I was like, I don't want to fall back into that pattern. So I was like, it doesn't matter what I draw and it doesn't matter what I finish as long as I'm drawing something. And so I started to doodle about 1 or 2 years ago at this point. Um Sometime after the pandemic, I think. Yeah. So I was just doodling to make sure that I was drawing something, and I wanted to draw my OCs more because I had just fallen into um just doing one-off illustrations, and I was like, I'll just draw my OCs. I'll go back to my roots of drawing my OCs a lot. And so I did that, and I started doing doodles, and so that's kind of how I got the idea for this channel, where I just doodle all the time. I was like, if I'm just gonna doodle, I might as well show some people. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and the art supplies I use now is just like as you're seeing right now, it's just some gel pen and some watercolor brush pens. So watercolor kind of got me in the end, I'm not gonna lie. Um, but only in pen form. Okay, that's as much as I can bring myself to do. So yeah. I guess I can kind of talk about the sketchbooks I was using. When I was a kid, I was mostly my parents were buying me my sketchbooks, so I would just use whatever they got me, and they mostly just got the cheap kind and also mixed media sketchbooks. So I didn't really have any brand loyalty to anything until I started my buying my own sketchbooks. And at that point I was just buying what are they called? They're mixed media sketchbooks. Canson. I was buying Canson mixed media sketchbooks, and I used those for a long time. I think about like ooh half of my sketchbooks are like Canson mixed media sketchbooks. And this was before I started moving into like knowing that there were sketchbooks that you could get for markers specifically. And when I started to realize that, oh, I don't have to use mixed media paper, and I started to realize what kind of paper I did like to use, I was like, I'm gonna start buying sketchbooks with smooth paper. I really like the texture of smooth paper, and smooth paper is really good for markers, and I still really like smooth paper. I really don't like the feel of rough paper, like that. The illustration I did the other day, um, the marker drawing I did the other day, that is on cardstock, and it is a rough cardstock. And it was good. It blended really well. It's not that you can't blend well on paper that has more tooth. I just don't like the feeling of it on my skin. So I try not to use paper that has tooth on it. Um, but like I said, it could be really good for blending markers, and you can pretty much use some papers are better suited for other mediums. You can this if you're a good enough artist, you can make stuff work with anything that you have. Um, um, but I can't. I don't like rough paper. I don't like the way it feels on my skin. And I know that sounds weird, but it's true. Yeah. And so when I started buying my own sketchbooks, I moved towards paper that is more suited for markers, smoother paper that is more suited for markers. And that's still really the paper that I buy now. I said that this sketchbook that I'm currently wearing in this Doodle sketchbook right here, it's not really suited for markers. I have used markers in it and they looked fine, but I didn't really like the feel of it. Um, I know that sounds weird if you're not an artist, but the feel of the paper is actually super kind of important, especially to me. If the paper doesn't feel right, I really don't want to use it. So yeah, trying to get the paper to feel right is super important to me personally. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about my art journey right now. You'll learn more about my art journey as I go through sketchbook tours, and I do have a sketchbook tour planned for tomorrow. We're going to be going through mostly my third sketchbook. Like I said, my second sketchbook, it doesn't really, what's it called? It doesn't really have that many drawings in it. I might just do it at the beginning and like flip through the 5 drawings that are in there. Um, and then just move on to the third sketchbook after that. So that's probably going to be the vibe for tomorrow. I hope that you like listening to me ramble for another 40 minutes. I think that maybe I want to try and shoot for having my videos be less than 30 minutes, especially if I'm going to include commentary, because um, it takes a lot longer if I'm just sitting here trying to figure out what to say, and then the video comes out later and later. And I work on these before I go to work, and I kind of have to have them done by a specific time. So I'm gonna try and shoot for these to be a little bit less than 30 minutes, I think. I think like that 18-minute video the other day, that was not so bad. So maybe that's what I'm gonna shoot for. Except for my sketchbook videos. I don't really edit those too much. I've only done one, but when I do the other ones, I'm not gonna edit them too much. I'm just gonna do it off the cuff and just edit out any of the embarrassing stuff that I say. So yeah. I don't know if you guys prefer longer videos, you can let me know. But if you prefer them shorter with just a lot of commentary, I think that's what I'm gonna do from now going forward, just so I could get them done in a timely manner. Because editing this video took and talking about it took me about 5 hours. And I kind of want to do other stuff too before I go to work, not just this. Um, so yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for another sketchbook tour. Like I said, for sketchbook 2 and 3, I guess. Um, and then after that, 2 days off. You know how it goes now. And hopefully, I will be back again for week 3. And also, yes, I'm just trying to make this last the last few seconds. We only have 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll see you next time. Okay.